We're
Brad
working.
Smith, what's up, man?
Hey,
Good to see you again.
good to see you.
What's the good word?
Well, we wake up in the morning and the brain is still working
That's right. That's
and we
right.
breathe. Every morning that I get to breathe, I'm a happy guy.
That's a good thing. That's definitely good. What got you to that point? I sometimes I hear people talk about being able to get up in the morning. Have you had any near death or anything happen to you in your life?
Oh, um, nope. I've
Yeah.
had so many non-physical out-of-body experiences and it's like normal.
Okay. Because I've talked to people that have been on that doorstep. They've seen the light, or they've survived something traumatic. And
Yeah.
yeah, but it's amazing how close we all can get sometimes to kind of getting out and coming back in and that kind of a thing.
Well, I've seen my death from this lifetime.
Wow.
I've been shown that and how that process is, relatively how old I am. So another 30 years down the road, and I'm 74. So
Interesting.
um I've had, yeah, that's just, the reason that I named my company Stellar Insight, not, I realized that what I do is I sell insight. What I
Yeah.
sell is insight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And but the reason I do is every one of those bright spots in the sky is a being, conscious being that's growing all the human beings and all the planets and every one of those things inside their sphere, every,
Yeah.
every in their solar disk. So I had the experience one time in meditation. So 2 days in a row. First day I sit down. This was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Sat down for maybe 25. Sat down in meditation, and I had stand up out of me a 30-foot angel spreads its wings across and says, "Down into me, you have forgotten who you are."
Wow.
Okay. Day one, right? The next day, I sit down to meditation and bang, just like that. You know how you identify this is your body, right? The solar system was my body.
Wow.
And I got to look down inside myself, and the sun and all the planets were inside me, and all the dust around, all the whole solar system disk was my body. And there were beings like Brad on each planet, not physical,
Right.
right? But on every one of the planets, there was a civilization going on, and some of the moons.
So do you
You
believe
can't forget that sort of
N
thing.
no, you can't, and, it makes me think that we're on this massive journey as souls. Do you
Oh,
believe in the
abs
yeah,
absolutely.
the whole level of reincarnation and it's hearkening back to a previous life, or how does that work for you?
I have memory of somewhere between 45 and 55 lives,
Wow.
pieces of them,
Yeah.
not, but the arc of my learning is like, 6,000 BC, I was an asshole,
Yeah,
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
and I was a dictator in Southwest China.
Yeah.
And I thought I was doing what was good for my people, even though genocide was one of my tools.
Yeah. Wow.
Nasty, right?
Yeah.
And so the evolution from that person to the people that I was in between to who I am now and the few skills I have now, and then where I get to go, right?
Yeah. But do you think there's gonna be a time where we're going to materialize and be conscious of the fact that we've been manifested in different ways throughout history? Do you think we just will have a preternatural kind of notion of something, but it's not going to be? That's the thing that I'm curious about. If all of this leads and lends, when do we get to see the timeline, or do we just continue to evolve because we have to learn and we have to grow as a soul?
You want the whole story?
We got some time here.
Okay. Um, so, and what's fun is I get to relate all of that back into business and leadership,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So just to bring us full circle, right?
Absolutely.
I coach CEOs so that they can grow because you can't grow a company beyond the limitations of the leadership, period.
Yeah.
Right? But if you grow the soul and personality, because they're different, together, if you grow the character of the individual up, eventually there's a meeting. Okay. So there's have you ever read anything by the Theosophical Society?
Yeah.
C.W. Ledbetter, Annie Besant, Alice Bailey, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. There's a book that I think Annie Besant wrote called Initiations Human and Solar. It is, and the next one that she wrote, it is the pathway. It's the whole path in front of us. So it's not if. All right, I'll back up. How did this start? I had a friend who had a tray, a neo, I don't know, from the 30s. She had a tray and she wanted to know if it was real.
Yeah.
So I looked at it and I said, I'll check when I do my meditation. And so what I did the next morning after I'd done my meditation was, and this is probably 30 years ago, I held the tray up in front of me in my imagination, and I looked at it and I asked if it was real, right? And all of a sudden there was a shift, and the tray was 30 feet across, and the circular patterns that were printed on it were energetic and going up and down, kind of like a merry-go-round, and the
Yeah.
horses on it, right?
Yeah.
So this whole energy thing was going around and around in a clockwise manner, and I was on the outside of it, standing at the edge of this 30-foot tray, if you would, and then all of a sudden I was in the center. That shift happened. I didn't put myself there. That happened automatically. And then as I look at these things going around the energy all of a sudden, then there was another shift, and I was in a pyramid on the inside. And I could feel the stone above me, in the inside. And I was standing on a stone block that was not just, the floor was stone blocks, right? Sandstone blocks, about 2 feet by 2 feet or bigger. And there was this bright light shining down through me, in through my body. And I was a male. And this deep male voice says to me, "You are one of my treasured humans." And then the subtext behind that, because there's two layers in telepathy. One is the spoken thought, and one is the intuitive thought behind that.
Yeah.
So you get meaning at both levels.
Yeah.
And so as this thought came, "You are one of my treasured humans," and the subtext was, hold yourself in reverence. You don't hold yourself in reverence enough. Okay, that was the first. And then this deep voice, there's a shift in the scene, and this huge hand reaches out over the earth. The huge hand being, my supposition was, it was the being whose body is the earth. And this hand came out, and each of the fingers was a human being.
Wow.
And the energy went down through and showed up down through. So it was like it reached out and then put its fingers down through a neoprene, if you would, a plastic rubber sort of material. And as it went down through, the human beings came into existence. And that was to let me know that every one of us is continually connected to our creator. We can't get away from it, period.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was one.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
Right. Then I went to a hypnotherapist. This is probably a year and a half to 2 years later, was it? And somewhere in that region, 2 to 4 years later.
Yeah.
And I went through a session, and it was just kind of arbitrary. It was just walk me down a path, let's see what shows up, right? So she did, but the moment she went, I'm inducted fairly easily. I showed up in the middle of a scene where I'm Egyptian, I'm a male, I've got an urn in my hand, and I'm bawling my eyes out. And I put the urn up on the altar in the temple, and then I walk out of the temple door, out through a garden, and then up into the sand, out way out into the desert. And I sit down, still crying, because my wife, that was my wife. My
Okay.
wife had died, right? And I was putting her organs up on, through that process, right?
Yeah.
Up on the altar, and then I went out into the desert. The moment I sat down on the desert, I my physical body was still there, the personality was still crying, but I lift up out of my physical body in a form that was somewhat, so probably my astral level,
Yeah.
up out over the Red Sea, over the Dead Sea or whatever, up over the Mediterranean, up over the Himalayas, and then down into the Gobi Desert. And I come into this temple, and there's pillars along, and an angel standing in front of each pillar in the temple. That's kind of a long, narrow temple. And I come down through the temple and I take a couple steps as I come to stand in front of the throne. Well, the throne I would describe as big enough for 10 human butts.
Yeah.
Big,
Yeah.
right? But there was a being in it. And as I'm coming into the temple, drifting, I hadn't hit the floor yet. The being was in the throne, then in the temple, then in the solar system, right?
Yeah.
Then back into the throne. Bang, 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 like that repeatedly, right?
Yeah.
And I come in and I step, and he's in the throne, kind of constantly then. And he says to me, "Are you ready to take your training?" Really? What? What's that? Right? Well, that was about 2500 BC. And so I'm there. Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm ready to take my training, whatever that is. And then I said, well, why me? Because that was the hypnotherapist guiding me through this, right? And so why me? And it said, because you have the right type of soul and the right type of spirit. And then opened up a span of time for me to see 15 to 20,000 years before that moment and 15 to 20,000 years after that moment, right? And showed me all the places that I'd had a life and the effects that I'd had in each one and the contract, if you would, and the effect I would have in each of my future lives.
Wow.
And so we're designed, our future is designed. So we don't think it's possible to go through a time where we do have free will.
Yeah.
We can screw up as much as we want,
Yeah. Right.
right? But also the outcome is already known, because before the being who is our earth, before the being who is our sun designed and let this place get created, they laid out everything in every blade of grass, period.
Yeah.
But also there's enough room in there for them in their omniscience, if you would, to know what our thoughts are, our choices are, and to guide us and evolve. So right now, the debacle we're going through right now on Earth with authoritarianism coming up as a kind of a key across the face of the planet, we're going through as a species an evolutionary process. And so, you know how teenagers get acne?
Yeah.
The emotional stuff we're going through as a planet is the human race's acne.
Yeah. 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 So I'm curious, since you have a sense of this map, you must feel pretty comfortable about how and why we're here and what's going on. Seems as though you
Yeah.
got a good idea of what it all means.
Well, if you're going to build a road, you make sure the foundation underneath the bridges you built is good and solid, right? And
Yeah.
you know pretty much all the parameters involved,
Yeah.
right? So what we're going through is a designed evolutionary school.
Yeah.
And each one of us are somewhere between preschool kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, and this school only goes through fifth grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus and all the beings that have gone through that level of evolution, if you would, and those skills, we call them miracles, they're skills, right? That's a designed process. And he graduated from fifth grade, no, from fifth grade, if you
Yeah.
would, at the resurrection.
Yeah.
And so one of the skills they get to have as an evolved human being, if you would, evolved spirit, is the ability to consciously create a physical body anytime they want.
Yeah. So, yeah,
And designed and engineered. That makes me comfortable.
right. So how does all this come full circle with business? You said it was all going to come full circle to the business aspect.
Okay, so business is a focus point and a creation point, right? Every one of us, and I'm writing a book about it. It's like we're already creators. All the garbage you have in your life, you've already created through the mechanisms of creation that are available and your subconscious images that you hold in your mind. So synchronicity, we design and guide our synchronicity and all the events that come to us automatically. And so what I like to do with business and my clients is to help them guide their subconscious creations, if you would. And maybe I can't talk like this in front of them. Some of them can't get this, some of them can, right? And so I would like to be able to teach leaders to grow their conscious character so that they're also managing all the stuff they have in their subconscious. I went through this period of time where I went to a hypnotherapist. I'll tell you this story. Went to a hypnotherapist, a good friend of mine now, and I asked for a shift so that I would get more clients. And all of a sudden, over the next month, I would have people show up to be clients. I randomly meet them, right? It's like, okay. But it was like 8 days later, a week and 1 day, 2 weeks and 1 day, 4 weeks and 1 day. Weird. So
Yeah.
I tracked that stuff. So, at any rate,
Yeah.
I'm going to back up and pick two more pieces up. Um, when I was 18, I developed an ulcerated colon, full term freshman at Oregon State. And the doctor, when I got to him like a month later, 2 months later, he said 3 sentences and transformed my life, or at least redirected me.
Yeah.
Gee, Brad, if you'd have waited 6 weeks to come see me, you'd have bled to death. So he had my attention.
Yeah.
Right? And he was right. I would have. I didn't know it was that serious when I walked in his door. I did, though. It's like, yep, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You've got my attention and my determination. Then he said, you'll never eat strawberries, corn, or lettuce, or anything with roughage ever again in your life. And my brain said, fat chance, buddy, that is not happening.
Yeah.
Right? Because I like those things,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Then he said, you have a psychosomatic disease. Your emotions affect the severity of your symptoms. And in that moment, I didn't know how, but I made the commitment to conquer it. Because if I could manage my emotions, I could manage the disease and understand it deep enough to transform it. So within about a year, I got the bleeding stopped. Within about 4 years, I got the pain down to intermittent. And then, this is the hypnotherapist, when I went to see her the first time, we dug back and reworked a memory of what I thought was my first spanking at about 10 or 11 months old. I was lit off the diaper pail. I was curious. I was swirling the diapers around going, gee, this is cool, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my mom caught me and spanked me because it freaked her out really bad,
Yeah.
right? Washed my hands and that sort of thing. But in that moment, in my own mind, I went from unconditional love to conditional love. And the issues around my colitis were around being unsure if I was loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So went back in, reworked that memory from an adult perspective, and within a year, all the symptoms were gone.
Wow.
Period. So
Wow.
that started me on. So that whole process taught me how to track patterns, taught me how to watch Brad's emotions as a beaker, if you would, Brad the beaker, right? And study what it took to transform, listen to my body. What does it take to change the outcomes that I want? So I took that and brought that up into my coaching process because I watched my dad start 34 companies and essentially kill 30 of them because he didn't have all the pieces in those 30.
Yeah.
And so I bring that kind of perspective of watching patterns, watching character, watching outcomes in business, that along with my bachelor's in business management, my minor in physics, chemistry, and psychology, and my MBA in marketing and finance. I kind of pull all those together and I can sit down and listen to a client or a potential client. And by the time I've talked to them for an hour, I know how their character is slowing the company down from its growth and keeping it from achieving the things that that person wants to achieve.
Amazing.
That's what I do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Let me ask you this, as human beings evolve and all these technologies are evolving around us, there's thoughts of like having mind readers, having
Mhm.
ways of transmitting. Are you afraid of that or what's your thought on that?
Uh, I was dating a woman, loved her very dearly. She helped her and her three sons go out to Florida. I think she's somewhere in the southeast now. And she shows up. I'm taking a shower because you kind of shift into the alpha brainwave level, so you're more receptive when you're taking a shower. And I hear her voice in my mind. So you've got it. You speak your thoughts in your mind.
Yeah.
And that taught me there's a loudspeaker that speaks my thoughts and an ear that hears them,
Yeah.
right? So her voice is using my speaker and I'm hearing her voice in my head say, at least I kissed him the last time I saw him, right?
Yeah.
But telepathy is real,
Yeah.
okay? And as you progress in your development, it becomes a tool you can use, okay? Some people are better listeners, some people are better transmitters. And what we want is to be able to be balanced in both. And
Yeah.
that takes a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I have it occasionally.
But do you think they're going to come up with a device that's going to be able to do that? That's going to be able to actually transmit that to each other?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I keep hearing chatter like in that AI kind of version that there's a possibility that that could happen. But my big existential question is, do we need to be doing that? Do we need to be actually transmitting our thoughts of what we think in an organic, raw way to each other? Or could that cause more problems and more ripples in what we're trying to do down here?
Is there ever no ripples? No,
Right, right,
ever.
true.
Right? There are
Yep,
never no ripples,
yeah,
period. We're human beings, we're ripple makers,
right,
period.
true.
Right?
Yep,
So whether we should or not, should is a really interesting word.
yeah,
Okay. I don't use it because it's a control word.
yeah,
Okay. Whether we could, yes. Whether we will, I don't know yet. I don't know the technology yet. Um, we will have perpetual energy before we have that.
yeah. I dig
Okay.
it. Yeah,
We will have, I have an invention I want to create. It will be about the size of my mug here, right? It'll
yeah,
be bigger before then,
yeah.
but it will take energy from the upper levels, bring it down and turn it into, and I'm not sure whether it'll be directly into electricity or kinetic energy.
Okay.
That won't involve fusion.
Okay. Interesting. That's fascinating. Listen, we've done a really good job here of filling time. I'd like to kind of keep this up. Maybe we can reconvene some months down the way. You're fascinating. I always love reaching out. It was a pleasure, Brad. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
So fun. Thank you.
Enjoy it out there.
I do.
Yes, sir. I know you do. Take care.
Bye bye.
See ya.